السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
السلام.
عليكم السلام.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والجنة للموحدين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين والصلاة والسلام الأتمان الأكملان على الركن الأعظم أفضل من تقدم ومن تأخر وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. أحباب المصطفى عليه الصلاة والسلام ولله الحمد. We are in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala once again, and we are resuming with our regularly scheduled Saturday evening halaqah. For those of you who are joining online, may Allah bless you, and we hope and pray that these sessions are of benefit to all of us, inshallah. Starting from today, we embark on a new journey that will take us a couple of weeks, and that is to have some conversations together regarding the fiqh of Salah. And I am warning you from the beginning that we're not going to go into the finer details of Salah, how to pray, which might have to follow, or the differences between the madhab. The reason for this is every Muslim who is watching or is here in the masjid with me has already learned how to pray, and they have learned how to pray based on an established method of Salah, which the Prophet ﷺ performed in his life, whether you follow the Hanafi madhab or the Shafi'i madhab or the Maliki madhab or the Hanbali madhab. All of them were taking their methods and their ways from Rasulullah ﷺ, and all of them are acceptable. Then we are not here to debate or to compete with these established schools of thought. However, we are here to discuss some of the aspects related to Salah, the spirit of Salah, the meanings of Salah, the deeper realities of Salah that can hopefully improve the quality of my Salah and the quality of your Salah. Ultimately, me and you both pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at least 5 times a day. But if you're like me, you will admit and acknowledge that there is room for improvement. How to improve? Inshallah, some of these reflections and some of these discussions hopefully will help us to improve the quality of our Salah. So let's get started. When we talk about Salah, first things first, as you guys will remember when we spoke about wudu, this is our standard method of operation. When we study fiqh, we talk about definitions, what things mean. And the word Salah in the Arabic language means dua. Salah, so we pray Salah to Maghrib. In the Arabic language, before Islam, before the Quran was revealed, before Muhammad became prophet and messenger, the word Salah had a meaning in the Arabic language. I hope everyone remembers that the Arabic language predates Muhammad, right? Ismail, the son of Sayyidina Ibrahim, spoke Arabic. He was raised in Mecca, the Arabian Peninsula, and he learned Arabic from the natives, from the local people who were there. So in that Arabic language, Salah means dua, means supplication. Now, when Islam came, when Muhammad came, when Allah gave him the Quran, the word Salah took on a very specific meaning. And what is that? Scholars of fiqh will define it for you. It is a specific act of worship that begins with takbir al-ihram, saying Allahu Akbar, and raising your hands, and it has in it ruku' and sujood. It includes recitation of the Quran, and it finishes with the taslim, with Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Obviously, we all know what we're talking about. It's that act of salah, the act of worship that we just did. So in the Sharia, in the religion of Islam, the word salah has that very specific meaning. But originally, the word salah just means any supplication, any dua generically was referred to as a salah. This is about the word salah itself. Now, we go to a different level of our discussion this evening, which is how important is Salah? How important is Salah? And how important is Salah? There's nothing I can say, there's nothing we can discuss that can really do justice to understand how important Salah really is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, throughout the Quran, multiple times He commands His believers, وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ, and many times وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ. Pray your salah and give your zakat. But in essence, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never said pray your salah, He said establish your salah. We'll talk about what that means another time, inshallah. So the command to make salah is present in the Quran. The Prophet ﷺ famously said in a hadith collected by Imam al-Tirmidhi, just to share with you guys a fun fact why I'm remembering the hadith right now. Earlier this week I wrote a small research paper. I have an assignment because one of the subjects that I'm studying in Al-Azhar this semester is contemporary fiqh issues, modern fiqh issues. And one of the masail, or one of the issues that we studied is praying in an airplane. How to pray in an airplane, and salah down in an airplane, etc., etc. This is not a new issue. This is obviously something that has existed for a period of time. But the philosophy of the teachers who teach is that they're trying to train the students of our time to know the way of thinking that is required to solve new problems. And the way to figure this out is to learn about the most recent new issues and figure out how ulama were able to come up with rulings so that me and inshallah my classmates in the future, we can solve the issues of tomorrow. Analyze the issues of yesterday and how the scholars were able to solve them, in order that you learn the lesson that tomorrow when there's new issues, you will have a philosophy in mind for how to solve them. In any case, one of the things that I was tasked to do was to write this paper about the validity of salah in an airplane or in something that is not on the ground, something that is not touching the ground. And can somebody pray while being suspended in the air was the essence of the assignment. And I was tasked with specifically analyzing the position of the Shafi'i madhab regarding that matter. In any case, all of this is way off topic. I don't know why I'm sharing this with you. The point I was trying to make was, in my little research, I stumbled across a hadith that Imam al-Tirmidhi narrates. Imam al-Tirmidhi says, the Prophet ﷺ said that the most important thing in this world is al-Islam. And what holds Islam together is as-salah. This is the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. What is most important in this dunya is Islam. And what holds Islam together, meaning what keeps Islam together for me and you as Muslims, is the salah. And there are many, many other hadith where the Prophet ﷺ stresses the importance of salah. The Prophet ﷺ said, is reported to himself, salah to imad al-deen. من أقامها فقد أقام الدين ومن هلكها فقد هلك ومن هدمها فقد هدم الدين. The Prophet ﷺ said, salah is what holds or what keeps the religion upright. Whoever establishes the salah, his religion will be upright. Whoever destroyed his salah or her salah, then their religion will fall apart. The Prophet ﷺ famously said, the difference between us and the disbelievers is the salah. Our salah, the way that we pray, and the frequency of our salah is what is different about us from those who are not Muslim. Those who are not Muslim, they don't pray the way that we pray. They might believe in God, they might believe in revelation, they might believe in Prophet, but they don't pray the way that we pray. Then what makes the Muslim unique is his or her salah. The Prophet ﷺ famously said that the first thing that a servant of Allah will be asked about on the Day of Judgment is their salah. And if there's no issue with the salah, then they will be okay going forward. Meaning, Allah will ask me and you on the Day of Judgment about our salah. If everything checks out, if the balance is there, we're expected to pray so many dhuhr, and it matches, it adds up, then after that, you will be on your way to Jannah. There will be nothing else that will destroy you. But the Prophet ﷺ warned that if there's issues in the salah, then most likely nothing after that will fix it. If there's issues in the salah, it will be very, very hard to fix your akhirah after that. But salah is of the most important, it is the number one most important ibadah, most important ritual in the life of the Muslim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, and this ayah will come up again later inshallah as well, Allah said, إِنَّ الصَّلَاةَ كَانَتْ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ كِتَابًا مَوْقُوتًا. Verily the prayers have been prescribed for the believers in specified times. Okay? Allah also said, this is something for the parents who are here, very, very interesting. In Surah Taha, Allah commanded Muhammad ﷺ and all of patience when teaching them and instructing them to pray. Allah commanded us in the Quran to teach our families to pray and to have patience in getting them to pray. This is very, very important. Because many a time you will find the parent says, I told my kid 100 times to pray, and he's not praying. Allah never said tell your kids to pray 100 times, and if you don't listen, move on. Allah said teach your kids to pray, command them to pray, and have patience when doing it. Why? Because it will be an effort. It will require lots of commitment. It will require lots of effort. It might take 10 years, it might take 15 years, it might take 20 years. You might find that your kids are adults and you still have to remind them to pray. Don't be discouraged. It's part of the package, it's part of the program. Then, Salah is extremely important in the life of the Muslim. As I said, nothing, no amount of ayat, no amount of hadith that I can share with you is going to do justice to how important Salah is for me and you. What is what's the hikmah, what is the wisdom behind the Salah? Why do me and you pray? You and I pray, Allah commanded us to pray 5 times a day so that we can talk to Him. And we should think of ourselves as fortunate. We shouldn't think of ourselves, unfortunately, many times, even myself included, we carry Salah as some heavy burden that we have to deal with, right? How many times has it happened that, maybe not us, but somebody around us, in our lingo, it comes, someone says, I have to get Asr out of the way. I need to get rid of Dhuhr. I need to get Maghrib over with, right? Giving almost the psychological indication that you see Salah as the obstacle. You see Salah as an impediment, something that is between you and watching a movie, between you and watching that game, between you and eating dinner or enjoying your life, whatever it might be. But sometimes the Muslim, may Allah protect us, carries Salah as some humongous burden, something that, oh my God, we have to do it or else. And this is something very, very important that I remind myself, and remind you brothers and sisters. We have to really think properly about the psychology behind how we teach and introduce our religion to others around us, starting with our children. If the psychology of Salah is, this is what is required to make sure you don't burn in hell, believe you me, it's very hard. And I'll tell you why. This is not my idea, it's not my rules. Psychologists tell us that the emotion and the motivation that comes from love is way more powerful than the motivation that comes from fear. I can prove it to you. It's not my idea. Again, sharing with you what I read. How do they prove it? They prove it in the following way. Once upon a time, even my own friend was sitting over here. Maybe he was afraid of the monster under his bed. Are you still scared there are monsters under your bed? But once upon a time, kids were afraid of the dark, right? Let's leave monsters alone. Once upon a time, kids were afraid of the dark. How long can you go being afraid of the dark? A time comes when the kid's age matures, and he starts to feel it's not that bad, right? There's nothing to be afraid of. There's no monsters. There's no little jinn in the corner. I'm okay. The light goes off, I go to bed, when I wake up the sun is there, or I can turn on my light, I'm okay, there's no problem. If he's so advanced, he gets a little night light and he puts it in the wall, alhamdulillah, nothing to be afraid of. That the fear of the dark will wear off. And this is the problem. Fear, human beings, we get over our fear. We can only be afraid of something for so long. Most of our fears we get over, or we learn to deal with it. The problem is, the humongous problem is that some people are teaching the religion of Islam and they are pushing it with fear. The energy to teach Islam is fear-based. The problem with this is the fear runs out. You can know how much fear, like there's a lot of hot air. How much hot air can you keep pumping? Eventually you run out of air. Or the heat starts to not feel so bad. The people get acclimatized to it. And then all of a sudden they don't react to it. And then people panic and say, why are they not listening? They're not listening because they use the wrong tactics. Now, the same way I said kids get over their fear of the dark, let's take another analogy. Kids help their parents because they love them. Constantly. Some of you are saying, my kids don't help me, may Allah help me. It's a different story, we're not talking about that today. But kids that help their parents, they do so because they love their parents. And guess what happens over time? The love for the parent in the heart of the child increases. Again, we said, we may have not have seen this yet, don't worry, it gets much better. It gets much better as the kids grow older. If you have little ones, especially if they are between the ages of, let's say, 13 or 12 and 18 or 19, it can be very hard, it can be very challenging. I don't have my own kids at that age, I was a kid that age, but I know how much trouble I caused my parents. But I'm telling you that the day comes, the children grow up. The more the kid grows, the more the kid matures, the more love and appreciation the kid develops for the parent. When that happens, the kid is more inclined to be helpful and to be in the service of the parent, right? As an example, you will find that a young kid, the maximum he can do out of love for his mom or dad, he can bring them a cup of water, he can help them to take out the trash, very good, right? A kid grows up to a certain level that he can help his dad and our little friend over here, he can help his dad carry the groceries, that's what he can do. More than that, he can't really, well, what else is he going to do, right? He's going to give his dad a hand with things around the house, okay, great. But as the kid grows up, when he gets big, inshallah, he will start to develop an appreciation for his dad. So one day he will grow up, he will finish university or college, he will get a job at his home. By that time, he'll be 21, 22 years old, he'll start to think, wow, okay, I'm earning some money, my dad earns some money, he used to pay all the bills in the house by himself. Interesting, I'm convinced that I don't have enough money, and I don't even have many bills to pay. So what will he start doing? He'll start to take some of his money and help his dad pay some of the bills at home. Then eventually, a few years will pass, he will get married. When he gets married and he has his own family, he lives in his own place, more maturity will come. You say, okay, living life is not as easy as I thought. Managing a household is a little bit tricky. But wow, my parents were able to do this for a really long time. And they never complained once about it. Maybe I should help them out. Maybe I should appreciate them. What is happening? I'm sure you get the point, that the love in the heart of the child increases over time for their parent. This pushes them to do more, and to help more, and to show more appreciation. Then the two opposite examples that I provided you guys, on one hand, the kid who's afraid of the dark, he outgrows his fear. On the other hand, the kid who loves his parents, or her parents, their love increases over time. And you find that because of that love, they do more, and they do more, and they do more. This should be a very, very, very good lesson for all of us when it comes to teaching religion to younger people, especially to our families and our children. That the way to go is not to tell them Jahannam if not. Oh, you don't want to get up for Fajr today again? Oh, that means you want to burn in Jahannam, right? Okay, that's fine, we'll burn. It's not the way to go. And it doesn't work, it doesn't deliver results. Because eventually, as I said, it's human psychology. We get over our fear. We learn to deal with it. Even if somebody in the audience, for example, is afraid of spiders. When the little kid, when the 8-year-old is afraid of spiders, they say, I cannot be in the same room when I see a spider. I see a spider, I have to run. Khalas, that's it, I can't stay there. But bring that same kid when he's 22, or when she's 22, still afraid of the spider, but says, between me and the spider, there's 6-7 meters. That's horrible. So what happens? We learn to deal with our fears. The problem is, if you treat religion in the same way, that you say you should be afraid, or else, the problem is people will acclimatize to it. They will learn to deal with it. And this will diminish their motivation and their commitment to take religion seriously. I can't even remember how we got here, but I think, if I recall correctly, we said that Allah commanded us in the Quran to teach our families and to encourage our children to pray and to have patience when doing it. Having patience to do that means to show love and to show care and to remind and to encourage and to motivate and to continuously work to get the children and to get the family to be excited and encouraged and feel the importance of making salah. And the point of this whole story was that salah is extremely important for me and you, and our future in the akhirah depends on the quality of our salah. All of this so far was an introduction to salah itself, which now takes us to place where we can start to talk about the fiqh of Salah, or at least begin looking into the fiqh of Salah. I stopped intentionally for a reason. See what is happening, share with you guys something. I found out that while I talk, other people talk. But for some reason, when I stop, other people also stop. I was just testing the theory to see where it goes. So far, it seems like it's working. I'm not sure what this means, but I think I'm onto something. I'll keep exploring. In any case, before we even get into the Salah, meaning before we even start our Salah, and we said our goal from this study and from these discussions is how to improve the quality of our Salah. How to improve the quality of our Salah starts before we say Allahu Akbar, long before that. And this is why the scholars of Islam have combined for us what they call the preconditions of Salah. There are conditions that have to be met before you can even start Salah. Any book of fiqh that you open, you will find these listed inside of it. I have compiled for you guys, I think, 6 of them in total that we're going to go through. And these are very healthy to prepare a person to get into Salah. Well, this time it didn't work. This time they were so determined. Even I stopped talking, they still kept talking. MashaAllah. I don't mind. I have no issue if somebody talks while I talk. It's not like I'm the only one who's talking. The problem is when I can hear you talking while I'm talking, it's very distracting. It affects my ability to present. We have people watching online, the brothers and sisters who are here, who dedicated their time to come and spend their time in the masjid to learn. I have no issue whatsoever. Anybody who wants to talk, you can talk about anything. Just go downstairs and talk. Not here while we can hear you talking while we're trying to discuss something that is beneficial. Then the preconditions of Salah. What do we need to be mindful of before we can get into the Salah? And I acknowledge, by the way, someone can remind me if it is the case, if the noise is coming from behind me where the meeting is, someone let me know. Because maybe I'm being hard with the guys in front of me, maybe the noise is coming from behind me. If that's the case, please forgive me. But if the noise is coming from in front of me, then you guys know what I said earlier. The preconditions of Salah. There are 6 of them in total that we're going to go through. I don't know if we'll get through all of them today, but let's start, inshallah. And if nothing else, then we can mention a few of them and we can elaborate next week, inshallah. Actually, next week there's no halaqah because we have the open house. Number 1 from the preconditions of Salah is tahara, which we spoke about previously. Tahara is wudu and ghusl, to make sure that a person is in a purified state, that their body is in a state of purity before they can come and make Salah. This we already know about. It's fully taken care of. We studied this for weeks before Ramadan. However, when we talk about the precondition of tahara to Salah, there's more to it than just wudu and ghusl or tayammum. When we talk about needing to be clean before you can start Salah, the scholars of Islam, they teach us that there is more to it than just washing your body. It's imperative that the person also make sure that the place that they are praying in is clean. Right? The place that you're going to pray in is clean. Now what does that mean? That means, generally speaking, the place that you are going to pray in should be a clean place. A place where there is no filth, there's no najasa, it's not overly dirty. And it's for this reason that we encourage that the Muslim home, the Muslim family home, should have a dedicated place to pray. Right? Each one of us in our homes, there should be a space where we feel that this is where we make Salah. And that particular space can be maintained as a place for Salah. Meaning it can be a carpet or a mat that's there, that's always clean. We can make sure that that space or that environment is neat and tidy. We can make sure that whatever it is that we use to make the area smell good, whether that's candles, perfume, diffusers, whatever it is that you like, that's okay for you to inhale and to breathe. You use some of that stuff to have a clean environment to pray. Here, footnote, the fine print, which is that this is not essential, and it's very, very important that we understand this. This is not essential. This is a recommendation that we should have prepared for us, right? But it is not essential. And I highlight this because the religion of Islam is a religion that is practical and can be practiced by anyone at any time. So for example, and sometimes this happens, sometimes you find a person, for example, they might miss Salah on the basis that I didn't find an adequate place to pray. I was outside, I was at the beach, I was barbecuing in the park, and I didn't feel that I could find an appropriate place to pray. What do you mean you didn't find it? You waited over Asr, Maghrib passed, now it's dark outside. Between all of that time you made no Salah because you couldn't find an adequate place to pray. Yeah, no. I didn't have my Musalla, it's none of the after that I like, therefore I couldn't make Salah. No. It's very important that we are, as I said, we should put the effort that in our home, for example, we have a dedicated place to pray, we take care of it, we maintain it. But it's not the only place we can pray. See what happened with other religions? They need to be in their essential this is not working. So we'll continue, we'll figure this out later. Okay, no problem here. We need to be, other religions, they need to be in a dedicated place to pray. So Christians, for example, if they're not in the church, they don't pray. Because they need to be in the church to be able to pray. Muslims were not like that. The Prophet ﷺ famously said, وَجُعِلَتْ بِي الْأَرْضُ مَسْجِدًا وَطَهُورًا. In all honesty and fairness, it's a good day for the mic to not work, mashallah. Because what we're talking about here doesn't need to be captured online. Alhamdulillah. Big issue. The Prophet ﷺ said, وَجُعِلَتْ لِيَ الْأَرْضُ مَسْجِدًا وَطَهُورًا. What does that mean? That the entire earth has been made as a place to pray for my community. The Ummah of Islam, Allah blessed us, that the entire earth is a place where we can pray. So we can pray on sand, we can pray on grass, we can pray on concrete, we can pray anywhere. There is, just for your information, fun fact, there is a teaching from the Prophet ﷺ not to pray in the place where the camels or the horses are kept. And people have debated the reason for this. Some have said maybe because it can be dirty, impure. That's possible. Right? But another point that some scholars have mentioned is because it could be dangerous. Imagine if you are praying like that and a horse or a camel or somebody kicks you, then you have a nasty injury because you were in sujood and you didn't see the horse coming, right? So Allah knows what the real hikmah was, but the Prophet ﷺ taught his companions not to pray in the place where the animals are. Whether it's because of cleanliness or it's because of safety, Allah knows best, but it's just a fun fact for you guys. So as I spoke to you guys about the importance of making sure that we have a place to pray at home, that we take care of and we maintain and we make sure it's clean, keep that in mind, and also keep in mind that this doesn't mean that we don't pray in other places. Right? Because if the time of Salah comes, you pray wherever you need to pray. Okay, a simple example, and I spoke about this when we talked about Tahara. Somebody who is a mechanic, he works, he's changing the oil of the car, he has grease all over him, oil on his fingers, for whatever reason, he can't make it to the masjid. But the place is not najis, right? Yeah, there's grease everywhere, he has grease on himself, but he has wudu, and the time of Asr is about to finish. He has a clean cardboard or a clean musalla mat, and he puts it in the corner of his store where, maybe there's grease on the walls, but it's clean otherwise overall, it's not najis. And he makes his salah is perfectly valid and it's perfectly acceptable. So it's important that we don't mix that, the fact that is allowed, that is valid if you need to under the circumstances, don't mix that with the fact that where we have the ability and we have the time and we have the space, we should prepare ourselves adequately for salah, not only by cleaning our bodies, making wudu, but making sure we have a clean and neat environment to make salah. The second precondition of salah before we can even start the salah, something for us to think about is what we call satrul awra, to cover the awra, to cover the awra of the body. What is the awra? The awra is a part of the body that should not be exposed for other people. Now, in essence, this is taking a snapshot of the fiqh. There's a difference between the awra in salah and outside of salah. Scholars will understand talk about, but outside of salah, a person is required to have the area between, and by the way, there's a huge difference between men and women. So let's go through. For a man, outside of salah, he is required to have the area between his belly button and his knee covered. And some fuqaha have said this includes the belly button and the knee. Some have said, others have said it doesn't include the belly button and the knee. So from this perspective, depending on which method you follow, somebody may be allowed to wear shorts and walk around, or wear shorts and go to the beach, for example, and he's not in violation of the Sharia. I'm not talking about the environment, I'm talking about what he's wearing, right? So if somebody was to wear swimming shorts and generally from his waist till about his knees approximately, it doesn't have to include his knees, it doesn't have to cover his knees. This is outside of salah. They add that when the time of salah comes for the man, the area to be covered is from his shoulder to his knee. So now you have to have a shirt on as well. So you need some, normal shorts, not too short. You should go to your knees. And you need a shirt over your body to cover your shoulders as well. There's, in one of the madhabs, they're very strict that even the arms of the men should be covered. I don't see this to be necessary or the strongest opinion. And according to that position, even, for example, somebody wearing what Masakun is wearing or what I wear sometimes was clothes with half sleeve, some people would find it problematic. Because I trust that this masjid, many of you do not follow the madhab, I'm pretty lax with, sometimes I come to the masjid and I come even to the salah with those short sleeve clothes, but in some other communities and other environments we would avoid doing that for the reason that there's some people who would pray behind us who would feel that our salah is not valid because the Imam had his arms open. As I said, I don't think this is correct, I don't think it's a requirement, I think it's pushing what is required, and it could become difficult for some people in certain environments, certain climates, but to prevent people behind this, because this is something just to share with you guys if you ever become an imam one day, or if anybody in the Jama'ah, anyone who's watching online, maybe some young friends get the opportunity to become an imam or to lead salah in the future. When you lead people, it's very important to keep in mind the feelings and the thoughts of the people behind you as well. You cannot be a leader and only care about what I think and what I know. And so this is one of the things that we were trained to understand, that when we lead salah, we have to conduct ourselves in a way that everyone who prays salah behind us feels comfortable with that salah that has happened. Because what's the purpose and what's the benefit of me leading somebody in salah, with the guy behind me in salah, he can't focus because he's thinking, is my salah accepted, is his salah accepted, does he know what he's doing, who taught him, big mess, right? So these are things that we keep in mind. But in any case, this is for the men, that he has to have the area between his shoulder and his knee covered to pray. So for example, if some boys were at the beach and they come out of the water, time of Asr is about to expire, they cannot make salah just in their shorts. They have to go grab a t-shirt and put it on, grab a tank top, something, put it on, and then they can pray after that. They cannot pray in just shorts. This is for the men. What about for the women? The women, her awra inside of salah and outside of salah remains the same. And that is that her body has to be covered in clothes that don't, and by the way, this applies for the men as well, clothes that don't reveal the shape of their body with the exception of their hands and their face and their feet. More than that, is not to be discussed. This is the awra inside of salah and outside of salah. And for mashallah, you guys in the Indonesian community have a wonderful culture where you have these prayer tools that were made, and I see you guys have them in the masjid and stuff too. It's very helpful just to remove any doubt or any question asking you pray and move on. Facilitate this kind of service for people to apply. If anybody has any doubt or any confusion, can I pray this, can I not pray this, put this on and pray. And by the way, you'll find in some other cultures that they have this for men as well. Right? Because the irony is obviously not talked about enough and scrutinized enough. But also, what can men pray? For example, men, if we come in formal clothing, dress pants and a shirt tucked in with our belt, there's no way in the dunya you can justify and say this is appropriate clothes to pray Salah. It just doesn't make sense. And in that case and in that environment, you would have to have something that you put on, either a long robe or something to cover the shape of your body when you go to make Salah. And it's something that men and our brothers need to be cognizant of. MashaAllah, again, because of the advantage of the Islamic culture that you guys come from, I see the clothes that many of you brothers wear, those little tops or shirts that you guys have, which I need to find a place to buy myself some as well, that are a few inches longer than the average t-shirt, and maybe have slits at the side to make it a little bit wider or whatever, so that when you bend and when you make sujood, the shape of your body is not exposed. But I remember one time something that forced us to think. There was a brother who was maybe the Imam or whoever it was in Toronto. Maybe the Imam didn't show up or whatever the story was, and one of the brothers from the community was asked to lead the Salah. And he was dressed like the rest of us. He had on some pants, he had on a shirt, and he was wearing like a spring jacket or something, a small jacket, and he had a scarf on. And so when they asked him to lead the Salah, he took the scarf off his neck and he wrapped it around his waist, and then he started to pray, he started to lead the Salah. And he explained, he said, this is just out of precaution because I'm the one who's going to lead the Salah. I need to make sure that even if there's any doubt whether my clothes fulfill the condition of covering my aura or not, I have to remove that doubt before I can stand in front of you guys to pray. And that triggered for me something to think about, that sometimes some of these formal clothes and some of these pants that we might wear, really if you think about it, maybe when we don't think about what we're wearing, but if you see somebody else or if somebody sees you, they'll realize that it's not appropriate to pray Salah in that type of clothing, right? And as I said earlier, the idea, I explained this concept by the way to non-Muslims. I had Catholic school students who visit me in the mosque in Brampton, at the local masjid, and they always ask about the hijab and the hijab and the stuff that women are supposed to wear and why Islam has strict dress code for women, etc., etc. And I always tell them, I say that Islam didn't come to prescribe conditions for women's clothing. Islam came to state that human beings should dress modestly. Now, what Islam defined that as, obviously, for the women is a specific definition, and for the men there's a specific definition, but there's lots of overlap. And one of the overlaps are that Islam came to say that men or women, need to be dressed modestly with clothing that do not reveal the shape of their body. It's very, very important. This is not something that's exclusive for women. It applies to men as well. The same way it's conceivable for many that women cannot walk around in skin-tight clothing, just like that, Islam does not allow men to walk around in skin-tight clothing. Right? Something that sometimes is lost from the train of thought of Muslims. But covering of the aura is extremely important. Here comes a very good question, and we're going to close with this because let's pray Hashem and everybody can go their way. Which is when we talk about the aura of the men and the women, sometimes, I don't know in your community, but in some communities a discussion will arise, which is the voice of the woman an aura? Is the voice of the lady something that has to be concealed? And the reason this discussion even comes is because you guys may have remembered in Ramadan when we had a situation one day where I was leading the Salah and I either prayed one rak'ah less. And the discussion came up that, okay, that scenario, women should clap and men should say SubhanAllah. And some people understood from this that is because the Prophet wanted to teach us that the voice of the lady is an aura, meaning the voice of the lady, just like how her beauty should be covered, her voice should be concealed. And this idea, allow me to suggest that my humble opinion does not hold water. It cannot be supported, it cannot be backed up, for a number of reasons. One clear example that I can prove to you guys is the story of Musa alayhi salam when he went to Madian. When Musa alayhi salam went to Madian, he met the two ladies who were, it's a long story, I cannot go into all the details, but if you know the story, you know what I'm talking about. He met two ladies, they were believed to be the daughters of Sayyidina Shu'aib. He married one of them in the end, and he spoke to them and they responded to him. They talked back and forth to each other. Had it been that the voice of the lady was Awra, the Prophet of Allah cannot go randomly and speak to a lady that he meets beside the well of water. That's one example. And there are other examples where the Sahabiyat, meaning the female companions of the Prophet ﷺ, spoke with the men that were around the Prophet ﷺ, and nobody was, hushing anybody up or telling anybody, oh, your voice, we can't hear you, we shouldn't hear you, kind of thing. This is not something that is reported. Add to this, there is no hadith, or there is no statement of the Prophet ﷺ where he taught the women in his ummah to lower their voice to make sure men can't hear them. Had this been a requirement of the Sharia, there would definitely be an explicit command of the Prophet ﷺ, oh women, make sure the men don't hear your voice. So that is something that we don't believe is part of the teachings of Islam. It's perfectly acceptable and normal for men and women to have conversations as long as there is an element of modesty that is maintained and there is no fitna that is being instigated or promoted between them. In the absence of that, men and women can hold perfectly normal conversations. The Prophet ﷺ spoke to women, women spoke to the Prophet ﷺ, women spoke to Sayyidina Umar, Sayyidina Umar spoke to women, and this is established to be a normal fact. The question then comes, why did the Prophet ﷺ tell the women to clap during the Salah? I alluded to it in Ramadan when I explained this to you guys, that perhaps the Prophet ﷺ was cognizant of the fact that the women are further back from the Imam. And rather than the woman yelling and trying to get the attention of the Imam, they make one like clapping. That's what I think, right? The men, if they're in the first or second row and they yell SubhanAllah, the Imam will hear them. You have to remember that was the time the masjid was open air, it wasn't fully enclosed like it is today. The sound had lots of room to escape, and the women were significantly, there was a gap and a distance between the men and the women. The masjid wasn't like how it is today, we have limitation of space. The Prophet ﷺ in his masjid, the men used to stand, and the children used to stand, and then the women would stand behind the children. So there was this gap between the sisters and between the Imam at the front. So perhaps the Prophet ﷺ gave them the permission to clap during the Salah as a way that they can hopefully make a louder sound that is something that will really catch people's attention and indicate to the Imam that a mistake has been made. Inshallah, we'll continue next week from where we left off with the preconditions of Salah, and we have to talk about facing the Qibla, and there's some fiqh around how to face the Qibla, what is a reasonable effort that needs to be made to face the Qibla, what if you are slightly off facing the Qibla, is the Salah valid or not. That is that for next week. We also will talk about it has to be a suitable time to pray. What is a suitable time to pray? What does that mean? When does the time of Salah enter? When is it prohibited to pray? And can you pray anything while it's prohibited to pray? These are things that we will discuss next week, inshallah. Not next week, the following week. We will also talk about how one must be sane and in a clear state of mind. Right? Meaning somebody cannot be obviously not supposed to be intoxicated and try to pray, but if somebody has been, for example, is taking any medication that makes them kind of woozy or something like that, then they should not pray in that state. Then we'll talk about the need and the intention to pray as well. And then following that, just to share with you guys, we'll be talking about some of the meanings of the dhikr of the Salah. Meaning, that dua that we make when we start the Salah, what does it mean? And why do we make that dua? Some reflection on Surah Al-Fatiha and why it has a place in every rak'ah in our Salah. Some reflections on the recitation of Quran. And for those of you who know or don't know, we are prohibited from reading Quran and ruku' and sujood. Why? in the Salah, but prohibited us from reading Quran and ruku and sujood in the Salah. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the stuff that we read in the ruku and sujood. What does it mean? And why is this part of our Salah? Etc. etc. And there's some other stuff that we'll talk about as well. All of this is coming inshallah, not next week, because next week we have the open house. This will be the week after next week, inshallah. Do you guys have any questions or comments for me before we make an end for Salah? Yes, ma'am.
So the sign that clap or is that standard? So the Imam will notice that there is a mistake.
Yes.
So yeah.
Meaning that every imam should be, I see your question, like the imam should know. The imam has no clue, and this would be like the biggest disaster. But the imam should know that if I hear subhanallah, it means I made a mistake. If I hear clapping behind me, it means I made a mistake.
That's a sign of standard.
Yes. I will add here the fine print that it is not impermissible for a sister to say subhanallah. Because based on what I explained, the hikmah is to carry the sound. Then in our case, for example, the sisters are a few feet behind me. Then if you guys notice I make a mistake, and what comes to your mind is to say subhanallah, and you say it and I hear, there is no problem. It's not haram, there is no sin. The whole idea is to alert the imam. If you are in a much bigger masjid, maybe one day we will be, inshallah, we'll expand this masjid one day, inshallah, why not? And you are way behind the imam, then maybe you can try clapping as loud as you can to get the imam's attention. I hope that answers your question. Shukran.
Sheikh, I have a question, but if it's too much of it's going to take you a long time, you don't have to answer
We
it.
can try.
So you mentioned in the beginning that the definition of Salah is the ritualistic, starting with Allahu Akbar and ending with Salaam Alaikum, right?
Yes.
So what is the true meaning of Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Allah sends His Salah.
Exactly.
What is
I was wanting to open that can of worms while I was lecturing, but I didn't. You brought it for us now, so I said, okay. And that is, that's a fantastic example of the usage of the word salah in our tradition, but according to its original meaning in the Arabic language. Because in that context, it means like we are sending prayers and blessings upon the Prophet. We're asking Allah to send that upon us. So when we say, for example, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, oh Allah, salli, do salah upon Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What do we mean there? We mean your blessings and your best wishes and your best, blessings is really the only word I can think of in English language, upon Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that translation of salah there is in the meaning of duha, the meaning of this. It's us requesting Allah to send something, send His blessings upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So there it's not, oh Allah, do salah, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Hamida, but that is a good example in our tradition of the usage of the word salah in its original meaning in the Arabic language for something that is part of our deen still. But when we talk salah as an act of worship, we're talking obviously about the ritual that we do. I hope that answers your question. Yeah. Anything else, Ahmad, before we conclude? Yes, sir.
So we cannot compare some rules that while we are praying salah, basically folding of the sleeve is not permitted. Is it?
There is some discussion about this among the fuqaha, that folding or rolling up the clothes during the salah is not recommended. I am not privy to what the hikmah behind that is. And by the way, it doesn't only apply to the sleeves. Some people will talk about this when it comes to folding up the pants. Right? Both ways. Rolling up the sleeves to pray or folding up your pants to pray. Some people, they have an idea that my pants are too long, and at least in salah I can fold them up. And some people will cite you that narration from our tradition that we shouldn't fold up our clothes to pray. But I am not familiar with what is the hikmah behind that, and when to avoid it, and when not to avoid it. I will add, as a footnote here, obviously, that there is some necessity for that, obviously, and anytime there's necessity, there is no harm. So, if somebody has some bandage or something, and has has to have a sleeve, if it has a cast, he has to have the sleeve rolled up, and in this case, no haraj is perfectly acceptable. He has to make do with it. I will look into this, inshallah, and get back to you. It's something that I have definitely heard mentioned around me, but I never got a chance to really investigate it. Nobody ever explained it to me in a way that convinced me that it is haram or something like that. But I will look into it, inshallah, and get back to you. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Anything else like that? Going once, twice.
So,
Jazakallah khair for listening to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Bless all of you. My apologies if somebody thought I was harsh or whatever, but this is very hard to focus. And there is noise coming in the background. I swear I was not like this before. These days maybe we're not prepared well enough for our presentations, and any noise and disturbance really gets in the way of the focus and interrupts our ability to deliver and present. There's two options. Either the distractions slow down, or maybe I have to spend more time preparing. That way we can not be affected by the distractions. But for those of you who listen attentively, may Allah bless you and reward you, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us all to take benefit from whatever has been discussed and whatever has been shared. Ultimately, our dua is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us all to focus on our salah and to be attentive during our salah. And we ask Him to accept our salah and to reward us for our salah. And we'll make adhan, inshallah, and get ready for Salatul Isha while the masjid is clean and we are clean and we can focus, inshallah, and hopefully take maximum benefit from our salah. I will see you guys, for those of you who are here tomorrow morning, I'll see you tomorrow morning. For the rest of us, we have an open house next week. Inshallah, and that will take up our day off. There will be no halqa after the open house, unless you guys want to teach fiqh or salah to the Muslim. Yes, we will come. It's completely up to you. But we will skip next week, inshallah, then we will resume the following. Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.